Assalamualaikum and good morning to all. Sorry, it's evening. Assalamualaikum and good evening to all. Hope everyone is good. So I'm Amy, Hainida Kari Ikram from Center for Nutrition and Dietetics
Assalamualaikum and
Studies,
good morning to all.
Faculty of Health Sciences,
Sorry, it's
UITM.
evening. Assalamualaikum and good evening to all.
Today I'm going to talk about food security and food choices during COVID-19. I would like to start my talk with this quote. Informing the population about the health risk posed by coronavirus disease, as well as what they can do to protect themselves, is the best way to mitigate the spread and reduce the amount of further contagion cases. In short, timely evidence-based information is the best vaccine against rumors and misinformation. Before we jump into the food security and food choices, how do you get COVID-19? So a person can contract COVID-19 if they come in contact with another person infected with the virus, someone infected cough or sneezes directly to them, they touch any surface with little droplets from infected people's cough or sneezes, and then touch their eyes, nose or mouth. So if someone in your home is sick, so you have to continue to practice everyday preventive action as usual. Keep the ill person in a separate room from others in the household. If you are caring for a sick household member, monitor your own health too. Keep surfaces disinfected and also avoid sharing personal items. So if you become sick, stay in contact with others by phone or email. Lastly, take care of the emotional health of your household members, including yourself. So what is the new normal? Today, the world has not found a cure or vaccine for COVID-19 yet. So we may have to adjust to the new normal, meaning a new way of living and going about of our life, like work, interaction with other peoples and our loved ones. Like in the picture here, you can see temperature checks everywhere we go will be part of a new normal way of life. So we have to bear in mind that we may have to live in the new normal for probably a long time until a cure or vaccine is found, or if herd immunity develops towards it. We have to learn to adapt our lifestyle to live with this pandemic. So we just have to embrace the new normal. In Malaysian, I would advise to always adhere to the movement control orders, have to stay at home, except for those working in the sectors that are allowed to operate. Only leave their home for important matters, for example, buying essential items, getting medical treatment, which is allowed during this movement control order. Continue practicing good personal hygiene habits at all times, and continue practicing safe social distancing. You may also have to wear face masks outside all the time, so we do not know until when. So this is the new normal. So your employer may ask you to work from home and do virtual meetings a lot more than before. If you are students, of course, I bet you already have to do online learning, virtual learning at home. Schools may reduce the size of their classes if they are about to open and do a lot of virtual teaching. And you may cook a lot more at home or learn how to cook or have food delivered a lot more often than before. Move on to the first section, which is food security during MCO COVID-19. So in this section, I will brief a little big facts on food security in the world and jump into food security in Malaysia. Since March this year, Food Security Portal, facilitated by International Food Policy Research Institute, have been tracking food export restriction and documenting their impact. This pandemic may cause poverty to increase. IFPRI estimates that 1% reduction in economic growth, so it's more than 14 million, will fall into poverty. The pandemic also could cause a reduction of 6% economic growth forecasted by International Monetary Fund, which means a total of 80 to 90 million more poor people. COVID-19 pandemic also will double the acute hunger or food insecure of the population. So in 2019, Global Report on Food Crisis, GRFC, reports at 135 million number of people in crisis or worse, which this is the highest in 4 years of GRFC existed. The COVID-19 will add another 130 million acute food insecurity within the population, which almost double of the number in 2019. So this is the status of recovery for some countries entering recovery phases or about to enter the recovery phase. China, South Korea, Brunei, Laos are in good hands compared to Australia and New Zealand, which their imported and exported goods are affected, but not as affected compared to Sri Lanka. Looking at Malaysia, which now entry recovery status, we are still in good hands. The logistic, manufacturing, import and export of food and food services are in good hands compared to other countries like Indonesia, India and Philippines. So study by Anissa from Indonesia, Pajajaran University, she stated that among 70 cities observed in Indonesia, 13 cities experienced a significant decrease in daily income. Restaurants are extremely affected and suggested more cities to use food delivery options to combat this issue. However, in Malaysia, it was reported that some delivery companies had recorded more than a 30% increase in orders since a movement control order was enacted on March 18. So again, this is the new normal. We can see from this picture food delivery on the rise in Asia can see
So again, this is the new normal.
drivers collect
Okay.
food from a
We can
restaurant,
see from this
which
picture
will be
food
delivered to
delivery
patrons. So
on the
most of
rising
people
Asian.
are
We can
going to
see,
stay at
so
home
again, this is the
and
new normal.
order
Drivers
online.
collect
Okay.
food from a
We can
restaurant,
see
from this
which
picture.
will So moving on the country level of food security. So you can see here is actually a Global Food Security Index GFSI 2019. Singapore is ranked number 1. Malaysia, we are ranked number 28 with GFSI score of 73.8. Thailand 52, Indonesia 62 with GFSI score of 62.6. This GFSI score are based mainly on availability, affordability, quality, and safety of food, as well as natural resources and resilience. Food security and food system can be disrupted by this point, like severe weather, natural calamities or disaster, pests and disease outbreaks, input shortages, and of course pandemic like this COVID-19 pandemics. So this pandemic caused food availability to be affected or disrupted, the production and imports of food access physically and economically, the food pricing, the logistic infrastructure can be affected and disrupted as well. And of course, food safety, contamination, the food utilization, nutrition and health, sanitation, and hygiene can be affected and disrupted. However, generally, Asian countries are not resilient to disruption in their natural resource base or to climate change. Okay, looking at food security in Malaysia, the COVID-19 pandemic has serious potential negative impact on food security and nutrition, livelihoods and incomes, and poverty all over the world. Although there is no shortage of food in Malaysia, disruption in food supply chain began to emerge as the crisis unfolded, but this will resolve speedily because of the online shopping, which became a lifeline to Malaysia. The pandemic also saw the emergence of a new group of families who lacked the financial resources to buy food due to an abrupt loss of employment and income. In other words, in spite of the availability of sufficient food, there are segments of society who experience food insecurity. This insecurity existed actually prior to the pandemic. So when the pandemic occurs, merely underscored its potential of severity on this group. So although there was technically no problem about food supply, the same cannot be said about access to and affordability of food. Indeed, apparently children in food insecure households are prone to suffer not only health-related problems, but run a greater risk of developmental and educational delays. So moving on, our second part, which is food choices for new normal. If you want to maintain your current good health, keep your immune system strong. You need to keep your immune system strong by taking various food groups according to food pyramid, okay, with different nutrients that you need for good health. Okay, and if you're having a chronic health condition such as diabetes, high blood pressure, you need to manage it well, okay, so that you don't make yourself susceptible to an infection, especially COVID-19. So these are actually the fundamentals of staying well. If you want to plan your food choices, you need to plan out your grocery list first. Put food you want to buy in the category of proteins, grains, vegetables, fruit, dairy, and miscellaneous. Okay, when you go shopping for your grocery list. Okay, bear in mind, okay, there's no need to burst your budget by buying expensive uh, food. Okay, and you don't need to spend a lot to buy the type of food during the MCO. For example, protein here, you can choose eggs, fresh or frozen meat, and fish that you can keep in the freezer, canned tuna and sardine or meat, ikan bilis, and dry or canned beans and nuts, including nut butter, grains, okay, rice, our staple food, bread, mihun, dry noodle, pasta, oatmeal, breakfast cereal, whole grain crackers, tortilla wraps is a good choice. Vegetables. Do remember that living green vegetables can't be kept for too long and needed to be cooked fast. So it's good if you can choose sturdier vegetables that keep longer, such as carrots, cabbage, celery, beans, lettuce finger, bitter gourd, tomatoes. Tomatoes is also a good choice of vegetable as it has high antioxidant content, lycopene content, for example, in the tomatoes. And these choices can keep well in the fridge longer. You can also consider root vegetables like potatoes, corns, sweet potatoes, and yams, and these are longer lasting choices too. Fruit. As I mentioned earlier, you don't need to bust your budget by buying expensive imported fruits. Our local fruits are highly nutritious with vitamins, antioxidant, fiber, such as pisang or bananas, our betik, papaya, is very high in vitamin C and carotenoids level, as well as lycopene content. Pineapple, guava, mangoes. You can choose our local fruits, which is not that expensive. Dairy, liquid or powdered milk, cheese and yogurt. So if you don't take cow's milk, you can consider other type of milk such as soya or nut milk. And under your miscellaneous items in your grocery list, you can add in cooking oil, of course, and aromatic ingredients such as onions, garlic, ginger, serai, turmeric to stock up for your cooking. Some handy tips of choosing your food choices. You need to check the expiry date on your packaged foods and choose the batch that has a longer expiry date. Okay, and you can also have some additional buffer stock than what you may be used to getting but there's no need to overbuy. Don't overbuy your food. For fresh vegetables and fruits, you can store it in airtight container or wrap it in a newspaper to retain moisture. This is some tips of handling or store fresh vegetables. Moving on, food delivery services. The more you are able to cook meals at home, the more you are lessening your dependence on food deliveries and takeout. Cooked meals at home is always the best because the food safety are guaranteed there. But if you are choosing food deliveries, you need to choose a restaurant or places that abide with the SOP from our government. And this in turn lessen the exposure from people who have to work to keep these services running during the MCO period. To fight this pandemic, we need to cooperate in social distancing for everyone's health safety, even for the restaurant and delivery staff. So they need to abide with the SOP that have done by the Ministry of Health and government. So with the crucial stage of pandemic we are facing right now, it is imperative we take this seriously as reducing our exposure to others even though we are in the recovery phases. We need to keep our social distancing. This is our best defense to contain the spread of the virus. I highly urge you to have a game plan as a family on how to spend your time at home as well as your food choices for the health of your own family, and establish some sense of order for the duration of MCO within your household. Okay, this is some of the protection tips which is very important to combat this disease. Okay, we need to maintain social distancing. Okay, wash your hands frequently and correctly, and keep objects and surfaces clean. Always keep objects and surfaces clean, and don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth. So I end my talk with a short quote as well. We must each do our part to combat this disease, and hopefully we will have the vaccine soon, or if the world could develop herd immunity towards this viruses. At the moment, we just need to adapt our lifestyle and live with them. Thank you.